So in this session, we will continue with the risk assessment and risk, or we can say risk analysis. So previously we have discussed about what is risk and how we can define risk and what is like how we can analyze risk on the basis of risk metrics, which is like high, low, or medium. And more else, we have discussed about many factors. Now we have risk assessment. So we were on the risk management. Risk management is divided into three parts, which is risk analysis, or we can say risk assessment. Then we have risk response, and then we have risk awareness. So risk assessment is all about like finding the risk and finding the impact of the risk and prioritizing the risk, like which risk is high, which risk is medium, or which risk is low. Then in the risk response phase, we have discussed about how we can like it is all about finding and fixing the risk, or mitigating the risk, or resolving the risk. And in the risk awareness, we have discussed about like spreading awareness about the risk. So now let's discuss the risk in detail, risk assessment. So here we have provided an extensive and accurate overview of risk management, risk assessment, and the role of upper management in specialized teams. Roles of upper management, and these are not a part of the exam, computer security. Okay, now we have responsibility of the upper management. So risk management is primarily the responsibility of the upper management within an organization. They are accountable or responsible for initiating and supporting risk analysis and assessment by defining the scope and purpose of endeavor. All risk assessment results and decisions and outcomes must be understood and approved by upper management, which is senior management, as a part of due care and due diligence. Due care is all about planning the stuff, like planning the risk, etc. And due diligence is all about implementing the or taking the initiatives to accomplish whatever we have planned in the due care. So risk assessment, or whatever the like factors we have in the security, it is overall the responsibility of the upper management. Like we need the approval of the upper management for defining or for implementing any strategy that is defined by the CISO or the security managers. Then your acceptance of risk. So it is impossible to eliminate all risk completely. So it is impossible. Instead, upper management needs to determine which risks are acceptable and which risks are not acceptable, or which needs to be handled, and which risk do we tolerate on the basis of the budget, on the basis of the expertise, business conditions, and other internal and external factors. The risk that your organization is tolerate, it can be tolerated by your organization. So it depends. It vary from organization to organization. The risk which you can tolerate or your organization can tolerate, it doesn't mean that other organization can also tolerate. For example, you can tolerate the loss of $100, but maybe any other organization cannot tolerate the loss of $100. So it depends on the size, on the budget, on the nature of the organization. Then we have asset-based risk assessment. So the risk assessment process involves developing an inventory of threats and assets, which is known as threat modeling. So it is all about pairing your asset with the threat that we have discussed in the last session. Within an organization, each threat asset pairing is individually evaluated and its related risk is calculated or assessed. So it is all about taking a single pair, like pair by pair. Let's say you have 100 asset and you have 100 threats listed. So you are pairing each thread with the asset, and whatever the risk we have calculated with the each thread asset pair, that we have to calculate or that we have to assess. So here concept of each. So risk we can evaluate or we can analyze risk by two methods. First we have qualitative and second we have quantitative. Those are very important for the examination. Qualitative is all about taking like quantitative is all about the mathematical like calculations, and qualitative is all about taking it is like like analyzing the risk on the basis of high, medium, or low, or on the basis of the risk matrix or the number which is 1 to 10 rating like. So qualitative doesn't involve any mathematical calculations, but quantitative is all about assigning a dollar value or calculating in terms of monetary values. So two primary risk assessment methodologies are used, quantitative and qualitative. And if you are using both in any organization, then we have hybrid approach for that. Okay, so quantitative risk analysis assign a real dollar value to asset loss and is based on mathematical calculations. And qualitative is all about consider subjective and intangible values such as perspective, feelings, intuition, and preferences. So we will see both. So hybrid is like when you are making balance. Like let's say you are doing the quantitative and qualitative, you are following both approaches on an organization, and you are maintaining a balance between both qualitative and quantitative. Then we can say you are considering hybrid approach. Okay, which is you are like using both approaches, quantitative and qualitative. Both are necessary if you want to if you want to derive an accurate result. Then we have goal of risk assessment. So the ultimate goal of risk assessment is to identify the risk and mitigate the risk. Okay, based on the asset or threat pairing and rank them in order of criticality. After ranking, then we can mitigate. Okay. So this prioritization helps guide the allocation of the limited resources for protecting against identified risk that we have discussed in the last session. Like if we have high risk, if we have like 5 risk out of 5, we have 3 high risk and 2 low risk. So first we will consider these 3 high risk and how we can say that this risk is high or this risk is low on the basis of impact of the risk. Okay, like impact of the or the consequences of the risk. Then we have risk tolerance and prioritization. So the evaluation of risk may involve using various tools such as metrics to assess the likelihood and severity of potential events, which is the formula of the risk, which is risk equal likelihood, like the occurrence of any risk in a particular year into severity, which is impact of the risk. Severity is same as like high, medium, or low, which totally depends on the impact of the risk of potential events. So risks are prioritized based on these assessments and organizations determine their tolerance for certain levels of risk. Then we have complementary approaches, which is a qualitative risk analysis can be used primarily steps to determine if more detail and resource intensive quantitative is necessary or not. So sometimes companies first approach the qualitative, and if there's a need of quantitative, then we apply that quantitative or we follow that quantitative approach. So that is known as this approach, complementary approach. So
Ma'am,
the
can you tell
complementary,
me one more time that quantitative and the qualitative?
okay, quantitative approach is like where you are assigning a dollar value or you are calculating the risk on the basis of mathematical calculations. Let's say we have this one asset. Let's say this one is species number 1, and we are assigning a dollar value, which is let's say the cost of this species $100. And next we are assigning SLE or ALE. We will discuss in a while. So we are assigning or we are calculating this risk, like how much the risk is there, or we are calculating the countermeasure or the value of the safeguard in the mathematical way, in the mathematical calculation. So we are analyzing like how much risk or how much loss we will risk will occur if we ignore the risk of if we do not take any initiative to apply any safeguard. So totally quantitative means we are applying the monetary values to the loss of the asset caused by any risk. And qualitative is like we are not taking any, we are not doing any mathematical calculation. It is totally based on the perspectives, feelings, intuition, and preferences. Like perspective is like how much this piece is important for us. If this piece is providing a productive output or not, or how much users are using these pieces, or perspective or feelings like we have human resources. So let's say if any error is caused by any human, or we have any human error in any database or any in any system, then that is all about perspective of feelings. Okay, like if we want to terminate that employee or not, or how much productivity he or she is like giving us, etc. So it's all about the qualitative that we will discuss in a while. Okay, in detail. So quantitative totally overall is all about mathematical calculations, and qualitative is all about subjective and intangible values. Intangible values are all about abstract noun, like we cannot touch, we cannot see, but we can feel. Okay. So overall risk management is a complex and ongoing process that involves collaboration between upper management, which is like we have to take the permission of our upper management for approval of any any net, any budget, approval of any plan or any strategy that is formed by the CISO, which is Chief Information Security Officer. So we need a constant efforts from the upper management, specialized terms and various departments with the organization. So apart from the upper management, we also need the efforts from the various departments of the organization. So understanding the and addressing risk effectively are essential to safeguarding the organization's asset, operations, and overall well-being. So let's discuss the qualitative risk analysis. So qualitative risk analysis or qualitative risk approach is more scenario based than it is calculated based. So rather than assigning the exact dollar value to any possible losses, to any possible risk or rank threats, we are calculating it's on the basis of um, like on the basis of any feeling, on the basis of any perspective, more about perspective, and it depends. It varies from company to company. So since a purely quantitative risk assessment is not possible, balancing the result of quantitative and qualitative is like essential. So this method of combining qualitative and quantitative into a final, it is known as like combining quantitative and qualitative analysis is known as hybrid assessment or hybrid analysis. So the process of performing the qualitative risk analysis involve judgment, intuition, and experience. You can use many techniques to perform the qualitative risk analysis. For example, brainstorming, storyboarding, focus group surveys. For example, let's take an example. Let's say uh, we have like some kind of devices or we have some kind of forces which we cannot assign any quantitative values. So for that, we assign the qualitative values. For example, let's say you have, let's take an example. There's a person and he's like in the senior level position. Let's say he is the manager of the financial department. And by mistake, he just did something which causes the error in the database, in the financial database, or in anywhere. So now he's in the senior position. He's well trained, but by mistake, he did a human error or error in the database or any in the financial logs. So we now here we cannot think about the quantitative. We cannot fit the quantitative analysis there because like we cannot assign any dollar value here. Now there's a qualitative approach comes. Now qualitative approach is we have two choices. Either we have to terminate him because of that human error, or we cannot because he is a senior manager. So these are like we are taking the qualitative analysis here. We are let's say you are like asking from the senior management CEO or anyone like either we have to terminate him or not, as he is like well trained or he is like working like from last 10 plus years. So it is like good idea to terminate him or just on the basis of that human error that is caused by him, or just like forget that error or move him move with him. So it's depends. So what we can take here? So we cannot basically terminate him because he was like working from last 10 plus years. So we cannot terminate him. So what we can do? We can just train him. Okay, we can provide training. We can train him to not to do this error again. So that is the qualitative approach we are taking. So we cannot fit the quantitative approach here. Okay, we cannot hire someone else in his or her place, because like hiring someone is also including many like processes like job description, like hiring, interviewing, and then training, and then training other employees that is like in the senior position. So it's all about, it's like include many processes. So terminating is not a relevant idea here. So instead of terminating, you get training. So this is the approach you have taken in the risk reduction. Because what is risk, and what is the causes of risk? It can be anything. It can be any attack from the attacker, or it can be any intentional attack. It can be any human error caused by any employees of your organization, even any client, okay, or any third party organization. And it can be any natural disaster. So here we are taking three approaches. So whenever we are designing a risk management strategy, so we have to consider these three factors. Okay, so here's the qualitative approach came. We cannot fit a quantitative approach. Okay, so it depends on the judgment, the intuition, or the experience, etc., the perspective, etc. And you can do the qualitative approaches like analysis by these factors: brainstorming, storyboarding, focus group, surveys, questionnaires, checklist, one-on-one meeting, interview scenario, and Delphi technique. So you can follow these approaches for performing the qualitative risk analysis. You can call the members or the managers of each and every department for sharing their ideas on the qualitative risk analysis. They can just like tell you about the risk that they are facing in their departments, and because they are expert in their departments, you are not expert in each and every department, or the security professionals are not expert in every department, right? So you need the insights from each and every department, or you need the perspective or the ideas or the methodologies from different departments. So that is why it is a very good idea or perspective to involve the managers or the senior managers from each and every department, like from financial department, from marketing department, from each and every department. And then we can take insights from these managers, and we can just analyze what are the risks are there in their departments. And then we can also we can also perform the quantitative approach there, or quality approach. So that depends. If there's no need of assigning a dollar value, so it's fine, we can use the qualitative approach. And if there's a need of assigning a dollar value, then we will use the quantitative approach. Okay, so it depends. So you can follow these. So out of these, scenario based and Delphi technique are important for the examination. So Delphi technique scenarios are like you are creating a scenario. You are creating a real life scenario. Let's say a scenario is a written description for a single major threat. It can be a single major threat. It can be a group of major threat, or it can be a group of minor threats. So the description focuses on how a threat would be like inside and what affects it occurs. So it's all about you are creating a real life scenario, and you are analyzing what are the possibilities, how we can deal with this scenario, and how the other members of the organization deal with this scenario. And then we can rate the scenario, we can rate the performance of the employees, and if there's the need of training the employees, then we will provide the training. So it's all about you are creating like real life scenario where you are just like focusing on the threats, you are focusing on the risk, you are focusing on everything that is required for the qualitative risk analysis. So the analysis participant that assign us to a scenario a threat level, a loss potential, and advantages of each safeguard. These assignments can be simple, such as high, medium, low, or basic number, which is 1 to 10, where you are like prioritizing the risk in terms of qualitative risk analysis. So you are prioritizing which threat is high, which threat is low, or which threat is medium. Okay, and then you are training your employees. So scenario is all about taking the uh, idea, or taking the like what you can say, taking the perspective from each and every employee. Like which employee will perform what in which situation. So it's like you are training the employee, or you are just identifying if this condition occurs, or if this scenario occurs in the near future, then how we will deal with this. So it is all about the scenarios. And then we can like compile all these responses from all the participants in the single report, and then we can analyze it. Then we have Delphi technique. So it is all about taking the feedback from the employees via anonymous way. Like we are taking the like responses from different employees without mentioning their name on that responses. So it is like anonymous feedback and response. So here we are, why we are doing this Delphi technique? Because so that we can take the like ideas, we can take the responses via from different employees in the way which like in a indiscrimination way. Okay, so that we cannot discriminate anyone on the basis of their response. So that's why it is a primary mechanism on the previous list that is not immediately recognizable and understood. So it is like simply taking the feedback and response from the using anonymous feature, which process used to enable a group to reach an anonymous consensus. Its primary purpose is to elicit honest and uninfluenced responses from all participants. So that is all about like we are using this like Delphi technique so that we can take the perspective, we can take the responses from different employers without any discrimination and without any politics, without any, and we are taking the honest like ideas from each and every employee so that we can reach to the conclusion. Okay. So that is also a important part for qualitative risk analysis. Then we have quantitative risk analysis. What's it? So quantitative risk analysis provides concrete numeric indication of risk and helps assign dollar figures to various risk factors. So it's all about calculating the risk in terms of mathematical operations. So here we have various terms here. So for calculating, we have various formulas for calculating. First, we will understood about these variables. So first variable we have AV, which is asset valuation. Asset valuation is like a dollar value. We are giving a dollar value to your asset. Let's say you have a PC. So the cost of this PC is let's say $10. So we are providing, so AV is equal to $10. And the value of asset is not only depends on the price, it also depends on the use, the utility, the productivity, everything. Okay. So identifying and assigning a monetary value to each asset within the organization. So it can be your asset. Now it can be any asset, intangible or tangible. It can be your PC, it can be your hardware devices, it can be your networking devices, it can be your software devices. Okay, like your softwares which you have purchased. Then research and identify threats. So produce a list of all possible threats that could impact each asset, which is like resulting asset threat pairing. Then we have calculate exposure factor, which is like EF. Okay. So determine the percentage of loss. So it is in percentage. It is in dollar. It is in percentage of loss that would occur if a specific threat materialized for each asset threat pairing. So it is like how much loss we would or the threat would occur sorry if any threat will or if any threat is released, okay, by any attacker or any threat agent. So it is like the percentage of loss that would any asset will face if any threat will released. Okay, so it is like, let's say if you have a PC and if this PC is vulnerable to SQL injection, then how much loss will this PC or the database will face if SQL injection is like realized in this, or any attacker will like successfully implement the SQL injection on this PC, okay, or the database. So that is EF, that is exposure factor. Then we have SLE, which is like single loss expectancy, which is like compute the monetary loss of for each asset threat pairing. So the threat is raised based on the asset value exposure factor. So SLE is equal to AB into EF. So AV into EF, that is asset valuation and exposure factor. So it is like a monetary loss for each threat pairing if the threat is realized. So it is like AV into EF. So the formula of SLE is AV into EF. Then perform threat analysis. So now here we have ARO. So calculate the likelihood of each asset each threat occurring within a year, known as ARO, which is like annualized rate of occurrence. Let's say if your database or if a service vulnerable to DOS attack or DDoS attack, so how much chances are there if this DDoS attack will occur within a year? So let's say if you have three chances, so the ARO is equal to three. Like if we have three, if there's a chances of DDoS attack is likely to occur within a year is 3. Then the ARO is equal to 3 only. Then we have ALE, which is annualized loss expectancy, which is like calculate the overall loss potential for each threat by multiplying SLE with ARO. So then we have ALE, which is like equal SLE into AR, which is like SLE equal AV into EV and ALE equal SLE into AR. Okay. So we will perform this one in a mathematical calculation. Okay. So let's say if the asset value is AV, which is let's say $10. Okay. And EF is like, let's the percentage of loss is, let's say 5%. Then you can calculate, which is you calculate this one using calculator. Okay, so let's calculate here, which is like 10 into 5 divided by 100. So the SL is 0.5. Okay. And same as we can calculate the ELE. So we will see this in the mathematical way. Okay, then we have research countermeasures, which we can research on the basis of the potential risk we have. Then evaluate countermeasure, then calculate the chances in the ERO, EF, and ALE when applying each countermeasure to each threat for each asset. So we don't have any formula for countermeasure. So it is whatever the countermeasure we are applying, it should be cost effective. Then perform the cost benefit analysis. If the safeguard is less than the cost of the EV, then we can apply, and if not, then we cannot apply. Okay, so this is like the hierarchy we have to perform. So first we have to calculate EV and EF. Okay, which is like value of your asset, and it is like exposure factor. SL is equal to EV into EF. Okay, and EF is in percentage and AV is in dollar sign. Then we have ARO and ALE. So we can calculate ARO is equal to, which is SLE into AR. Okay. So let me show you the formula, please. So here we have formulas, which is like asset value is in dollar and exposure factor percentage SLE equal EV into EF. And then annualized ARO is equal to in the hash per year, which is like how much threat or the risk can occur within a year. Then ELE equal SLE into ARO, or we can say ELE equal AV into EF into ARO. So it's same, because the formula of SLE is AV into EF. So we are replacing this SLE here with this form. Okay, so you can take this one or this one, both are same. And then ACL, which is like annual cost of safeguard, which is in also dollar in year. And what is the formula of this one? Value of benefit of safeguard, which is like ALE 1 minus ALE second into AC minus ACS. ALE 1 means, let me show you this one. It is an ALE pre-safeguard and ALE post-safeguard. It is the cost, or we can say the impact, which is or the impact before applying the safeguard and the impact after applying the safeguard minus ACS, which is like annual cost of safeguard. So by this formula, you can calculate if you want to apply any safeguard or not. Okay, so let me show you this. Yeah. So here, okay. So you can read about these terms, which is like EF, SLE. These are all whatever we have discussed. Okay. So quantitative risk analysis provides valuable insights by assigning monetary values to various risk factors. So this process helps to prioritize risk based on their potential financial impact and frequency of occurrence. Okay. And the risk assessment software tools can simplify the calculation process and produce a risk analysis report. So we have many risk assessment softwares which you can use for automate the process. So once the AL is calculated for each asset threat PLE, risk are sorted from the largest to smallest ALE, which we are like putting this in the like descending order. So the largest ALE indicates the most critical risk that requires immediate attention in the risk response phase. Okay, which is like if we have the largest the yearly, the prioritize we have to give to this to that yearly. So we have like difference in both qualitative and quantitative, which is like employees math functions. So in the quality we don't need, and the quantitative yes. Okay, user uses cost benefit analysis may or yes. Okay, because it depends on the intuition and it depends on the perspective, that is qualitative, and quantitative is like we get the exact value of the cost benefit analysis. Requires estimation yes and some. Okay, because qualitative is subjective and quantitative is based on the mathematical calculations. Supports automation no or yes. Okay, so you cannot do or you cannot automate qualitative analysis because it depends on the users. It depends on your team. It depends on it. It varies from organization to organization. In the quantitative, it requires we can use risk assessment tools for doing this quantitative analysis. Involves a high value of information? No and yes, because you need to evaluate each and every asset. You need to assign a dollar value to each and every asset. Then you need EF factor, etc. That is objective, less no, more so. Relies on opinion, yes, I know, require significant time and effort sometimes. So you can just read about these and offer useful and meaningful results. So it depends on your organization. So it depends on it vary from organization to organization. So if in some organization, qualitative approach is more valuable or more meaningful or insightful than the quantitative. And in some organization, quantitative is more insightful than qualitative. So it depends. Then before that, we have this one, which is ALE. Okay, so ALE, sorry, this ACS or ALE is not the part of the exam. Okay, but it is important. Okay. So the quantitative risk analysis involves performing mathematical evaluations of cost benefit of safeguards to prioritize and select the most effective ones for managing risk. So the process includes calculating the potential ALE and both before and after the implementation of safeguards. So we are calculating the ALE before putting the safeguard and after putting the safeguard. So we are putting before putting the safeguard, so ALE is ALE pre-safeguard or pre-ALE, we can say that. And after putting the safeguard, it is like ALE post-safeguard. Okay, which is post-safeguard. So we can also list ALE1, which is pre-safeguard, before putting the safeguard, and ALE second, after putting the safeguard. And then we can calculate that ALE is ALE, the formula is this one, EF, which is SLE into AR. Then we can calculate the cost benefit analysis, with ALE 1 minus, which is subtract ALE, second subtract ACS. Okay. And what is this ACS, which is like annual cost of safeguard is estimated, which includes factors such as purchase, development, implementation, maintenance, productivity loss, and testing costs. Okay, so you can you also have to give a monetary value to this ACS. So it depends on various factors like purchase. Let's say this PC is vulnerable. So now you have two options. Either you can replace this PC, means you can purchase, or you can configure this once again. Like you can just configure the security policies. You can configure the security locks or security rules in this PC or any networking devices. So there's no need of purchasing the devices every time if any PCs or any system is vulnerable to any vulnerability. So it's better to first take this approach, which is like configuring. And if there's no means of configuring, or if this system is outdated, then you can purchase the new one. Okay, so you have to calculate this ACS while using these factors, which is purchase, development, etc. So now we have the formula of um, cost benefit analysis, which is ALE, before applying the safeguard, which is pre-safeguard, after applying the safeguard, and then minus ACS. Okay, so the positive result from the cost benefit formula indicates the annual saving an organization may gain while deploying the safeguard. Means the result, if the result is positive, then you can apply the safeguard. If the result is negative, you cannot apply the safeguard. Because if the result is negative, means your safeguard is greater than the value of your asset. Okay, and if let's say the safeguard is less than, if the safeguard is positive, so it is means it is less than the value of your asset valuation, which is like the asset you are protecting while applying the safeguard. So if it is positive, then you can apply. If it is negative, okay, then you cannot apply. Okay, then there's no use of applying any safe, which gives you the most cost effective approach. Okay, so it is crucial to note the quantitative risk analysis involves a certain level of estimation, statistical analysis, and even the historical data and probability prediction, which you can also perform with the help of ML, machine learning, making the values obtained useful for prioritization and selection, but not necessarily reflecting real world losses or cost. Okay, so it's about the formula. So this, I think this formula is not the part of the exam, or if it is, then just read it. Okay, basically it is not the part of the exam. The part of the exam is only calculating this AB, EF, SLE, ERO, ALE. That's it. Okay, but it is like the part of the 6 exam. So you can just like use this in the CISP exam. So when performing the cost benefit analysis, organization must consider budget constraint and the availability of resources. Security management should aim to obtain the best security for the available budget and resources. So whatever the approaches we are applying, or whatever the mechanism, security mechanism we are applying for protecting any asset, for protecting any system, that should be cost effective. Okay, so this is all about this. Then we have risk response. So after calculating the risk, after calculating these factors, after doing the qualitative or quantitative analysis, then we have risk response. So whether a quantitative or qualitative risk assessment was performed, there are many elements of risk responses that apply equally on both approaches. Okay, so once the risk analysis is complete, management must address each specific risk. So we have these possible risk responses. First is mitigation reduction, which is like reducing the risk impact. Assignment or transfer, which is like transferring the risk. Deterrence, avoidance, acceptance, or reject or ignore. So let's see one by one. So before that, we have some terms here. Okay. So first we have risk tolerance and risk appetite. Then we have risk limit, risk tolerance. We have these terms. So first here and risk capacity. Risk appetite and risk tolerance. Risk appetite is a total amount of risk that an organization is willing to shoulder in aggregate across all assets. Means the risk appetite is a risk which the organization can bear up. Okay. Then risk capacity is the level of risk an organization is able to shoulder. So it is like here we have it in like similar terms, but there's a difference in this willing. Means the organization is choosing to bear up, and the organization is actually can bear up. So there's a difference. Okay. So risk appetite and risk tolerance. The organization desired risk appetite may be greater than its actual capacity. Okay. Means the choosing or the willing or the capacity. So the willing is greater than the capacity. So the risk capital is like the organization is willing to handle it. It is like choosing or it is like expecting to handle, and risk capacity is like actual risk the organization can handle. Okay, so there's a difference. Then we have risk tolerance, which is like the amount of level of risk an organization will accept per individual asset threat pair. So let's say if this one is a database, or let's say if this one is a PC. If let's say if this PC is vulnerable to any vulnerability, let's say click jacking. So you can bear up because click checking, the impact of click checking is very low. And or let's say if your database is vulnerable to SQL injection. So now the impact of SQL injection is large. So it depends. Okay, which system or the size of your organization, the budget, or it varies from company to company. Okay, the tolerance factor. Maybe the risk which you can tolerate, maybe cannot tolerate by any other organization. So it depends. Then we have this is often related to risk target, which is the preferred level of risk for a specific asset threat pairing. Then we have risk limit, which is like the maximum level of risk above the risk target that will be tolerated before further risk management actions are taken. So you can refer this risk limit as a boundary here. Like before, like below this boundary, you can bear up any risk, which is like risk target. But above this boundary, you cannot bear any like risk. And for that, if any risk which you will like arise from this risk boundary, then you can say that there's a you have to take the risk management actions. So risk limit is like a boundary here. If the risk like which you can tolerate is below here. Okay, if the risk which are occurring and if the organization can tolerate, then these are below here. And if the organization cannot tolerate, then that is above the risk limit. And then for that, you have to apply the risk management. For example, let's say you have a risk, let's say congestion. So now this risk is high, so you cannot tolerate. So you have to apply the security mechanism here. You have to reduce the risk here. And let's say click jacking or any other simple attack, and let's the impact is low, so that you can tolerate, and that is below the security or risk limit. Okay. Now, here we have some like risk responses, which is like risk mitigation. So risk mitigation is like you are implementing the safeguard, you are implementing the security controls, the countermeasure, the security mechanism to reduce the risk or to eliminate the risk. So there are two chances. Mitigation is all about like reducing or resolving. Okay. So goal is lower risk to an acceptable level. You can apply encryption, firewalls, access control, etc. And risk assignment. Transfer responsibility of a potential risk loss to another entity. Means let's say your five devices are, or your let's say your organization buildings are in these are, let's say we have a risk factor, let's say fire, and let's say we have a exposure factor or we have a SLE is 0.3, which is like we have the chances or the occurrence of this fire threat or fire risk can be one time within 30 years. Okay, like we can list here the fire can like the buildings can caught fire. Like if here we have a SLE, which is we can say that ELE, that is like the occurrence of this fire can be like one time within these 30 years. So here the chances is 0.3 within 1 year. So here this is like your expected loss which is caused by this fire. Okay, like the occurrence of your that risk. So you can transfer this risk. So instead of avoiding this fire, you are transferring this, like you are purchasing the insurance policy, let's say. So like if any risk or any your organization or your infra caught fire by any reason, then you have an insurance. So it is an example of transferring the risk. You are not mitigating the risk. Mitigating the risk, let's say if you want to mitigate, then you can use like fireproof walls. Okay. You can use fireproof walls, etc., for mitigating the risk. But instead of using the fireproof walls, you are purchasing the insurance for your organization, so that if any risk occur, then you are transferring that risk. So like shift the risk burden to a third party. Okay, that is risk assessment. Then assignment. Then we have risk deterrence, which is like discourage potential threats against from attacks. So it is like prevent incident by disiluding attackers. It is like we are we are taking the prevention for reducing the risk. Okay, let's say we are putting the posters everywhere for like what is the impact of the risk or what is the consequences if you are not following the policies. Okay, so you are spreading the awareness, you are using the security cameras, you are using the network monitoring tools for deterring the risk. Okay, which is like taking the prevention step for the risk, for reducing the risk. Okay, then we have risk avoidance, which is like choosing alternative approaches with lower associated risk. So eliminate the risk cost entirely, or so avoiding the potential harm and loss. Okay, so this is an example of risk avoidance. So risk deterrence and risk avoidance are almost similar. Okay, in the risk deterrence, you are like, let's say for example, uh, you are convincing any attacker to not to attack on your organization, or you are threatening any attacker to not to attack on your organization, because you are just displaying or you are showing the consequences of attacking, etc. So you are like convincing your team members to not to involve in any kind of breach or any attack. That is risk deterrence. And avoidance is like you are avoiding the risk, which is like you are taking the initiatives to avoid the risk. Let's say the you are using two-step verification for avoiding the risk like that. Okay, then we have risk acceptance, which is like accepting the risk, which is like result of cost benefit analysis favoring inaction. Means if your safeguard is greater than the value of your asset, then you are just accepting the risk. So instead of like mitigating the risk or reducing the risk, you are accepting, because there's a simple reason, because your safeguard or the security mechanism or the cost of security mechanism of the safeguard you are applying is greater than the value of the asset or the cost of the asset you are protecting. So if let's say the cost of the asset is like $100, and the safeguard for protecting this asset is, let's say, $1,000. So what is the need of applying that safeguard? Because, and in that case, you are using the risk acceptance. Okay, you are doing nothing for protecting this asset, because if you try to protect this asset, the value is greater than the cost of the asset, and it is not a cost effective measure. So we only follow the most effective cost effective measure to protect the asset or to mitigate the risk. So in that case, what we will do, we will like accept the risk. For accepting, you should know, or your company should know, what are the consequences if you accept the risk. So you should document that thing, and you also have to document who is accountable for this decision. Like if you're accepting the risk, so who is responsible for this decision? So you need a proper documentation for that, even for the like future use. So that needs the full documentation for accepting or ignoring the risk. Okay, both. Then we have a risk rejection, which is like simply ignoring the risk. Okay, just pretending that we don't have any risk. Okay, which is like unacceptable, and it is of course like any unacceptable response to ignore or deny risk, and can lead to negligence and severe consequences. Just you are assuming that we don't have any risk. Okay, like we are just ignoring the risk. So it is not a like good practice to ignore the risk. Okay, so these are some risk responses, which is the part of the exam. You have to uh, read these. Okay, you have to go through these. So is it clear this much? So it is like a SISP document. So we have much more apart from the risk management. So and legal and compliance. So these are not the part of the exam. Conscious security. Okay.
Yeah, understood, ma'am. Clear. Mm.
So the part of the exams are, let
Ah,
me, I will share this, like a separate document for that. But the part of
okay.
the exam is this one: understand, and apply the risk management concepts. Like what is risk management, risk response, risk assessment, and risk awareness. And what is risk terminology and concepts? Okay, these are the basic concepts which we are using in the risk management phrases.
Yeah,
Then
these
we
all
have
okay. Clearly.
yes, Jen,
Your voice is very low, ma'am.
sorry.
Your voice is very low.
Okay, okay. Um, Now can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, yeah, yes. Now it's okay, okay, okay.
So the part of the exams are, I'm saying that it is like conscious security plus, which is like apply risk management concepts, which is like risk management, what is risk assessment, risk response, and risk awareness. Then we have risk terms and concepts, risk keywords, which are used in the risk management, risk assessment, risk response phrases. Like what is asset, what are assets, what are risk asset valuation, what are threats, etc. Okay, and after that, the part of the exams are the concepts are risk assessment and risk analysis, like how we can analyze risk, or the responsibility of the upper management, acceptance, qualitative and quantitative approaches. Okay, so the qualitative approaches and quantitative approaches are the part of the exam, and more as the part of the exam is these difference, which is qualitative and quantitative difference, and risk responses. Okay, and more as this one cost versus benefit of security controls. So these are the and these formulas. So these are the part of the risk management concept of the conscious security plus. So I will provide a separate document for that. Okay, so that to avoid any confusion. Okay.
Okay,
So is
okay.
there anything you want to ask from these concepts?
Yeah, no, ma'am, clear. I have to study one more time.
So
I'll study.
like I think there one to two more concepts are left from this part that we'll discuss
Okay.
on Monday. Okay, then I will
Yeah, okay,
share
ma'am.
the content. Okay, so that you can
Yeah, okay.
practice.
Yeah, can you share by tomorrow, ma'am? Tomorrow morning? Because tomorrow I have holiday. I can read one more
Okay,
time.
yeah. Tomorrow I will share the
Yeah.
questions and this recording and this
Videos also.
document.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, ma'am. Yeah.
so can we wrap up?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay.